Okay, hi, this is Social Psychology 512. This is week two's presentation presented by Stephen Mosher. And, well, here we go. And now we have attribution theory. Attribution theory is a group of theories that describe how people explain causes of behavior. Um, this is important because, it helps us interact with others. And the way we do that is, it helps us if, figure out if we can trust someone, we can predict maybe how they're going to act in the future. We can pick up on the kind of personality they have, their attitude, and maybe, some of their abilities. And I think we kind of do this without even knowing it, but we observe and analyze their behavior. We just kind of naturally do it. One way we do it is we simply analyze their actions. We see what they do, what they did in a certain situation. We might say, why did they do that thing? Did they do it of their own free will? Did they do it out of an obligation? They do it for, maybe it was personal gain, or it was expected of them, or maybe they did it just to help someone. And now we're moving on to self-concept. Self-concept, the sum total of an individual's beliefs about his or her own personal attributes. Basically, this is how we see ourselves. One might see themselves as a liberal or a conservative, a dependent kind of person, maybe an independent person, and so on. Along with this comes self-schema. Self-schema is the belief people hold about themselves that guides the processing of self-relevant information. Again, this is like the impression you have of yourself. Like, you might see yourself as a shy person, a friendly person. You might think of yourself as an attractive person or an intellectual. It's like if you see yourself in a certain way or having some ability. Like if you saw yourself being good at a certain sport. Then when you actually play that sport, your belief going into it is that you're good. And I guess because of that belief, it helps us perform better. I guess sometimes all you have to do is believe. Okay, moving along to self-esteem. Self-esteem is an effective component of the self, consisting of a person's positive and negative self-evaluation. This is how we estimate or appraise ourselves. We all value different things. It comes from what we see as important. And we all base it on different things, like one's appearance, maybe our accomplishments, or maybe you hang out with the cool kids at school, or you have a lot of disposable income. Moving to the sociometer theory, that's a self-esteem is a gauge that monitors our social interactions and sends us signals as to whether our behavior is acceptable to others. I kind of like this theory that our self-esteem is kind of like a gauge and that it helps us detect, you know, acceptance and rejection, which can, in turn, can translate into high or low self-esteem, which kind of goes into feedback on our self and peer involvement. Both of these are important precursors to self-esteem and well-being. These are important to our self-esteem because when we receive positive feedback on something such as a post you make on like social media site or something, if it's positive, it can boost your self-esteem. But on the same note, self-esteem, well, if it's negative, it could go the other way, having a negative effect on your self-esteem. And with technology and the internet being the way it is now, and a lot of people's self-esteem is riding on whether people are going to respond positively or negatively to their content. Okay, we're on self-presentation. Self-presentation, strategies people use to shape what others think of them. You can use message boards, personal ads, political campaigns, word of mouth. I think the list kind of goes on. This is the way people control what kind of impressions we make on others. This can aid us in getting power or influence, some sympathy or approval, like politicians, where the people's opinion of you are the difference between, being elected or not being elected. And again, we see them all the time, TV ads or billboards. But I can see a lot of in-person campaigning too. Saying you are a good person on TV doesn't have the same effect that saying it in person would. That sort of goes with the word of mouth. Like a lot of studies have shown, like word of mouth has a great impact on public opinion, especially if the message is a negative one. So I can see why politicians would want to have more of a one-on-one interaction with people. That way they could control negative opinions from gaining too much momentum. Because if someone had to lose an election because someone said something negative about them and they weren't there to defend it, to stop it, I could see that being a big letdown. Confirmation biases. Confirmation bias is the tendency to seek, interpret, and create information that verifies existing beliefs. I guess sometimes we all get horse blinders on and about certain subjects. It can be hard for someone to change an existing belief even if new evidence is presented to them. This is when someone only accepts complementary information on their beliefs and ignore everything else. I think everybody's been guilty of this. I know I have. Belief perseverance, the tendency to maintain beliefs even after they have been discredited. These beliefs keep going because once we believe something, we will make up all kinds of reasons to support that belief, even after it has been discredited. Sometimes that can lead us into self-fulfilling prophecy. Self-fulfilling prophecy is the process by which one's expectations about a person eventually lead to that person's to behave in a way that confirms those expectations. I guess an example of that would be, say, if a teacher had a certain expectation for one of their students. Maybe they would want them to reach a certain goal by the end of the year. The teacher may change the way they treat the student. They may give them more praise, more attention, better feedback. And all of this, in turn, may affect the student's behavior. With all this new positive influence, it may make the student have a higher self-esteem and make them want to work harder. It may even give them the idea that was what was originally the teacher's goal for them is now that it's their own personal goal. And they'll do anything to reach it. This now concludes this short presentation. Oh, oops, almost forgot my questions. Do people really analyze behavior in a way that one might expect of a scientist or a computer? And do they have the motivation or the cognitive capacity for such elaborate mindful systems? And the second one is judge not that you be not judged. comes to mind when I think of social comparison. We all compare ourselves to others. Give an example of how when we compare ourselves in a favorable way over others, it may lead to pride and a self-righteousness perception of oneself. All right.